Hey everybody, welcome to the Canadian University Shooting Federation webinar series, episode 2, Shotgun 101. This episode is sponsored by The Gun Dealer. Thank you all for taking the time to be with us tonight. We have a great presentation lined up for you. We got some excellent speakers and you'll get lots of information on the shotgun sports. The presentation is geared for new shooters who haven't shot trap or skeet before, but if you're an experienced shooter, there will be lots of information there for you as well. So we'll get started. I have to mention our sponsors really quick. Cabela's Outdoor Fund is CUSF's headline sponsor. They fund students getting shooting all the time. Whenever you go to Cabela's and they ask you to round up, that money goes to the Cabela's Outdoors Fund, and in turn, they support organizations like the Canadian University Shooting Federation. Our other sponsors are Vortex. They make fantastic optics, rifle scopes. They have lifetime warranties on them. They're great. Stittsville Shooting Ranges out of Ottawa. They get a lot of our students out shooting and support us. And Beretta, they make quality equipment at great prices. A little bit about the CUSF, Canadian University Shooting Federation. We're a Canada-wide organization and we're entirely run by volunteers. And our main goal is to get post-secondary students out shooting across the country. Right now we have 20 clubs from coast to coast, and we grow every year. For the shotgun sports, we hold nationwide satellite tournaments, so individual schools will compete in a given time frame, and then they'll compare their scores. We have rifle competitions as well, and starting in the fall of 2021, we're going to have our Shotgun 101 clinic. So the video that we're doing tonight is going to be used as a teaching tool for students who attend the Shotgun 101 clinic. Right now, we run entirely on funding from our memberships, donations, and sponsorships. So if you want to support us, you can go to shop.cusf.ca. And we're also a registered charity under the Registered Canadian Amateur Athletic Association. So you get tax receipts. Tonight, I'm sure this is why everybody tuned in on top of our excellent speakers. We're giving away a 20 gauge Mossberg Maverick 88. This was provided by the gun dealer. You can see Dean holding it up there, brand new. In order to win, you have to meet 3 conditions. And this is very, very important because last time they didn't meet the 3 conditions and I had to pick another winner. So if you want to win the shotgun, you have a very good chance at winning. So you have to be present for this entire webinar. You have to be a CUSF member before 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. Last time, somebody thought it was 8:30 Pacific, which was after the webinar. So no, you can't buy your membership after you win. So you have 24 minutes to go to shop.cusf.ca to buy your membership. If you already have a membership, it's good for the year. And you have to have a valid PAL. There are no exceptions to these rules. If I draw somebody and they don't meet these 3 criteria, I'll draw another person. I'm also going to give away, I think, Cabela's gift card, 25 bucks. So somebody will get one of those. Quickly, the presenters tonight. I'm Travis Mitchell. I'm the programs director for the CUSF. I've been volunteering for them for about 2 years. And during COVID, since we can't get out and do our programs in person, we thought, what better way to connect with our students than do a webinar series? So here we are. We have an excellent panel of hosts tonight. I'm going to let each one of them introduce themselves because I'd probably butcher it. So up first is Emily.
Hi, thanks for the introduction and the invitation to be here. I am a Canadian University Shooting Federation board director. I sit on a number of shooting advisory boards to plan events, to fundraise, to create new shooter events. So within Ontario, Canada-wide with the Canadian Trap Shooting Association, the Ontario Council of Shooters, which has 6 disciplines under its umbrella. And that is the provincial sporting organization that gets us funding from the ministry. And I have held and still hold Canadian and provincial trap shooting titles. Thanks. And I'm a professor of math.
There we go. Next, we'll have Susan. Let's see.
All right, I am a six-time Olympian, seven-time women's world trap shooting champion. Like Emily, I have Canadian and provincial titles as well. I'm the chair of the shotgun committee for the Shooting Federation of Canada. I still am competing internationally. I'm an ISSF level A coach, and I have a PhD in sports sciences. And I've been doing this a long time. And I
We
still
have 100 years combined. Right?
Next, we've got Dean, our skeet guy.
Thanks for having me, Travis. I'm far less experienced than the two ladies presenting with me tonight. I am a co-founder of the CUSF, a director, and the skeet shooting manager. I hold a few Canadian skeet and Ontario provincial skeet titles. I'm an NSSA instructor and the zone instructor for Zone 8, so I teach new instructors and bring them into the NSSA instructor pool. And I'm the coach of the Carleton University shotgun team. So it's great to be here, and I look forward to the presentation.
Fantastic, thanks. Needless to say, I feel totally unqualified for this, so I'm just going to moderate. So quickly, we'll go through the agenda for tonight. Like I said, this is a primer for our Shotgun 101 clinic. It's going to be recorded, and we're going to use it as a teaching tool whenever we have that shotgun clinic up and running. Depending on what's going on with COVID, we're hoping to have this run out in the fall, and it's going to be designed for students who have never been to a skeet or trap field, and we want to get them mastering the fundamentals by the end of this one-day clinic. So we're going to go through range safety and etiquette. There are certain things you can and can't do on a range. Trap versus skeet, they are different. Lots of people think trap and skeet are the same thing. They're not. An important thing in shotgun shooting, eye dominance. We'll go through shotgun terminology, kind of the anatomy of a shotgun. We'll do a few demonstrations for you. Stance, mount, swing, and turn. Going to show you the proper gun fit, discuss hold points and focal points, and then at the end we'll have the Maverick 88 and Cabela's gift card giveaway. We want you guys to interact as well. If you have any questions you want answered, there should be a question panel that you can fill out. As we're going, type any questions you have into there, and I'll try to get answers to them as we go along. So we're going to start off with shotgun range safety. Dean, if we were to talk about shotgun range safety, what are the three things that we're looking for?
Well, just like any shooting sports, if you've done your PAL or a hunter safety course, the fundamentals are always the same. You always want your muzzle pointed in a safe direction. On a skeet or trap field, that's downrange. On a skeet field, it's between the two houses. On a trap field, it's out over the trap house and not towards any other stations. You're always going to keep, and your action is always going to be open and the firearm unloaded at all times until you are on the station and ready to shoot. Your trigger finger stays off the trigger and out of the trigger guard until you're on the pad and ready to shoot. In the shotgun sports, sorry, this is thunder. In the shotgun sports, there's a lot of inherent safeties. One of the biggest being, especially in skeet shooting, there's only ever one person shooting at any one time, and that's the same in trap. In skeet, everyone's lined up one behind another, and with the firearm pointed in a safe direction. When there's a misfire or a hang fire, the gun stays pointed in a safe direction for 10 to 15 seconds till the gun's open and the ammunition is checked. So in the shotgun sports, safety is always number one. And in our sports, because of the way fields are laid out, it's an inherently very, very safe sport. And everyone takes safety extraordinarily seriously.
For sure. So I included the little meme on the bottom for, you ever notice trigger finger discipline follows you everywhere? And it's true. Trigger finger discipline, whenever you're doing it, you'll find yourself doing it everywhere. So you'd mentioned that you're only loading your firearm when you're standing on the station, one shooter at a time. A couple other important range safety rules. Dean, if you had to say a few.
Well, in terms of the safety on the range, you're never ever going to attempt to load a firearm unless you're 100% certain of the manufacturer's specifications, what gauge or bore the shotgun is, and any operating procedures. You don't want to be handed a semi-auto shotgun and a shell if you have no idea how to operate that shotgun safely, or with any other firearm. And the biggest one, of course, there's no alcohol or drugs to be used before, during, or after. When the range is closed on your own time, that's up to you. But in terms of shotgun safety, alcohol and drugs do not mix, not even a little bit.
For sure. So there's some protocols we can do with range safety, checking your bore. There's a few other things. You want to go through those, Dean, as well?
Absolutely. So when your gun is open, in skeet and trap, the most prominent firearm that you see are over-unders, break actions. So you're always, I shoot a lot of reloads. So every time my gun is open, even after a couple shots that sounded good and targets break or not, I can look down the barrel. I always check to make sure there's no wad stuck in there. You want to make sure that your barrels and your bore are clear at all times before you shoot. Always keep your muzzle pointed towards center, so that in a misfire situation, which happens especially when you're shooting some of my not so great reloads, my night before reloads, you'll get a pop or nothing will happen. So the gun stays pointed in straight downrange, and until we can 100% verify that the ammunition is safe and ready to come out of the firearm. You're never going to load more than 2 shells at one time. So if you're shooting a pump or an auto loader, you're never ever going to shoot more than 2 shots in skeet or trap doubles. So there's no need to ever have more than 2 shells in your gun. When I'm working with my Carleton students, unless we're shooting doubles, they're loading one shell at a time, and that's a safety protocol that we have in place. And that way, me as a coach, I can feel safe, because sometimes after a shot, I want to talk to my students, and I want to be 100% sure that every time that firearm is unloaded. So before I start speaking with them, the gun is opened anyways, the action is open, so we know that there's no any more shells in the chamber. On the skeet field, there's another extra safety hazard. The low house window is only 3 feet off the ground. So say you're picking up your hulls for reloading, or you drop a shell, you never want to step out or bend down in front of the low house window, because the person pulling the targets may inadvertently push the button. And I've seen people, not when I'm on the field, but I have seen it happen and heard of it happening many other times, where someone gets hit by a low host target because they weren't paying attention, they're new, or there wasn't adequate supervisors on the range.
Mm-hmm.
And
that low house is shown in that picture on the bottom right as well. You can see that little door that's there.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. I was gonna suggest on the trap field, are there any spots you shouldn't be?
Well, I was going to say, when you're looking when you're looking at your barrel and checking for obstructions, they don't always come from the shell. They can also come from accidentally touching the barrel in dirt or in snow. Some of our barrels are very long, 32 or 34 inches, and they can swing through dirt or snow, sometimes without our awareness. You must always have barrel awareness and always check for obstructions.
Absolutely. And that brings up a great point. In skeet, it's a sport where we shoot multiple different gauges. So a lot of us shooters have more than one type of ammunition, more than one caliber or gauge, or if you're shooting 410 bore. So it's never safe to have more than one type of ammunition in your shell pouch at any one time. If you accidentally put a 28 gauge shell down a 20 gauge barrel, it may go down a pretty good ways, and it could get stuck in the forcing cone. And if you're not checking for obstructions, that could lead to a very bad day and injury.
Sounds like an
And
expensive day.
that's a very expensive day, and I've never seen that happen, fortunately. And last but certainly not least, you're always going to wear eye and ear protection. In skeet shooting, this is a 100% must. Most ranges mandate it, regardless of whether you're shooting skeet or trap. I know that in international varieties, you could see shooters not wearing eye protection at times, but at most ranges across the country, it is standard. And if it's not at whatever range you're at, I suggest you wear eye protection. On a skeet field, I've been hit by ricochet BBs that hit the clay target and come back. They won't break the skin, but if it hits you in the eye, that's not a good thing. And ear protection, it's a given. You shoot enough, you're going to go deaf if you're not wearing hearing protection. So protect yourself. Make sure everyone around you is wearing eye and ear protection, and be safe out there. I said last, but certainly not least. But there's also going to be not running on the range. There's going to be a few more here, I think.
Yeah. One question from Jacqueline. She says she's watching lots of old ISSF shoots, and it looks like they break some of these rules regularly. So are some of these more best practices, or are the rules different for ISSF versus Canadian? So I don't know what rules she's speaking about, but are there differences in the rules?
No, it's
No.
These ones.
it's the, you always have your gun pointing down the range, you know, over the trap, in trap, and in skeet, always into the center. Some countries like Italy don't particularly like wearing, some of their people don't like wearing glasses, but most countries wear glasses. And I think everyone I know and I've seen wears ear protection. Sometimes it's the, it's not the over the shoulder, I mean, over the ears, but it's little ones that we just put in our ears like this. And like your ear pods or whatever they're called. And so
she mentioned specifically reloading right away before they move to the next station.
Oh, well, no, in international you do, except when you go from post 5 to post 1 in trap. You do, as soon as you finish shooting, you put the shells in, then you move to the next post. But if you'll notice, the gun is always pointing towards the trap.
That makes sense. Do prescription sunglasses suffice as eye protection? I think normally you have to have a little bit on the sides as well.
No, not really.
No, so that they would suffice?
It's just the glasses, and you don't have to have anything on the side.
The problem with prescription glasses that aren't shooting glasses is where you're looking over the target, right? So your point of vision is different with shooting glasses because of how you're looking through them. So a general prescription sunglass will do for the time being, but once you get shooting more frequently, then you're going to need something that's specifically designed for shooting because of where you're looking through the lens.
Fair enough. So we'll move on from there. Emily, we'll talk a little bit about range etiquette because there's some kind of unspoken rules when you go to the range. If you're a new person going to the range, what are some things that you got to know?
Well, sometimes you're very excited because you look at the gun rack and you see a lot of really cool guns with great designs in them and beautiful wood, and you might think, I'm just going to pick this gun up. Never, never, ever handle anyone else's gun without permission. That will get you into a lot of trouble. If you are borrowing a gun, it is best to use factory, so purchase from the store ammunition rather than reloaded ones that you make at home, only because factory ammunition are guaranteed to function properly and perhaps less dirty than a reloaded shell. So never fire a test shot unannounced. I don't know when you would ever do that. And don't shoot twice at the same target. Generally, when you're starting out, you're only shooting, you're only allowed one shell in your gun anyway, so that we as coaches or mentors know that you have one shell and one shell only. I don't know that we added about clothing, and it's almost more safety as much as etiquette. But you want to dress for a sporting event. You know, this isn't a day at the beach. It is a sporting event. You want to dress appropriately so that it's safe, so you're not getting, you know, anything coming back at you. You know, open-toed shoes are okay, but sometimes frowned upon, again, for the same reason. You don't want to injure yourself as you're moving around the range. You should always pick up your empty shells, so the hull that's left over when you shoot, those are generally either extracted and put in the recycle or disposal bin at the time, or you're going to pick them up later.
Is there a specific time?
Not while people are shooting.
No, afterwards. Yeah. Yeah.
So you would shoot your stations, and then at the end you go pick up your shells.
You would shoot the entire round.
Yeah, at the end of the 25, go pick it up.
Yeah, because when you're ready to shoot, you don't want to be seeing in your peripheral vision somebody bending down. That is very disturbing and definitely will get you yelled at or chucked. Don't talk when others are shooting. Those are two reasons. Again, this is a mind sport, so you don't want to be distracted or interrupted. Also, most shooting ranges now have microphone auto callers. So if you are speaking, you may release a target when someone else is ready to shoot. And that, again, is wasting targets and very distracted. Yeah, just be careful when you're carrying your gun over and under. Because you don't want to be moving and hitting anyone with it. You've got a lot of gun. It's not like a handgun or a rifle. You have a lot of gun in front and behind you. And don't run. And I know Dean mentioned this. So unless someone's bleeding or needs some other, first aid help, you will never see anyone running at a gun club. It is unsafe. And if someone is seen running at a gun club, it's assumed that there's an emergency.
Fair enough. So we're going to move.
Shooting, just one more thing, is if someone is about to shoot and they're shooting, you don't shoot. You know, a lot of times people will shoot. The etiquette is you wait till they shoot and the gun comes down. Then you bring your gun up and call. It's that's the etiquette. You know, let them finish, bring their gun down, then you can start to bring your gun up.
Yeah, the best thing is to watch.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask. I think most people would be open to suggesting or answering your questions if you're new. So like, I'm new to this. Can you guide me? Find somebody experienced on the range to help you through that.
Yeah, it's like golfing. We don't really care what you golf. We just care that the proper manners are followed.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. So we have different types of shotgun sports. Susan, can you explain a few of the different types that we're going to talk about?
We have two Olympic sports, Olympic trap and Olympic skeet. And in Olympic trap, we have 15 machines underground, and they throw the target away from you at various heights, various angles, and up to about 65 miles an hour. In Olympic skeet, you have a high house, a low house, but you start with the gun down here on above your hip, and you call, and it can come up now or up to a 2-second delay. And then you go like this. And Olympic trap has been around the longest. It was in the 1900 Olympics.
Yep,
Canadian won the Olympic gold medal. Ewing in 1906, 1904, 1906. Olympic trap didn't start, Olympic skeet didn't start until the 1912s, 1920s. American trap, which is what we mostly do in North America, you have one machine, it throws the bird approximately about 45 miles an hour, and it's up to 20-degree angles, and it's usually about the same height. And we have 5 positions in a circle, and we have 3 different events. We have singles, handicap, and doubles. In Olympic trap, it's 5 positions, but we only have the one event, Olympic trap. In skeet, again, you have the high house, the low house, and then half circle. And there in North American skeet is where we have different gauges, and people really enjoy that. All the rounds are always out of 25. And so that's sort of the similarity. The other shotgun event sports are sporting clays and 5-stand and live pigeons.
And the sporting clays and 5-stand is more to emulate a hunting situation. You're walking through the bush type of event. Yeah.
And they have more machines, and it's different.
Yeah.
Of course, being a trap shooter, we do think it is the most superior sport.
Of course, we're going to have that debate all night long, I'm sure.
Of course.
So, Emily, we have a little bit more about trap. Do you want to explain kind of what the field looks like? If you're coming up to a trap field, what is it that you're going to see? What are the positions?
Okay, yeah. So again, as Susan said, we have 5 stations, 1 through 5, and the stations have sidewalks that kind of come out like fingers of a hand. At the closest to the box where the target flies out of, you are 16 yards from that house. And then for the handicap or second event that we shoot, you will be progressively further back on those fingers to a maximum distance of 27 yards away from the trap house. So again, you would have to position and shoot a little bit of a different strategy depending on where you are on that continuum. So in a trap, there is either 1 or 2 targets that are ejected from the house, 1 for singles and handicap shooting, and 2 for doubles. So you'll have 2 targets emerge simultaneously. And again, you would have to have 2 shells, and you would shoot 1 and then the second one. And there are different strategies for shooting from each, and where your hold point is on the trap, and where your break point is for the target. And that's pretty much as different as every shooter, right? There are some strategies, but there are also some personal preferences.
And some people just shoot everything the same. You know, they have the same, the hold point is the same across and they just shoot it the same way.
Yeah.
We call that the KISS principle. Keep it simple, sweetheart.
Yes.
That's a good one for me.
And one thing, the picture in the middle down there, that person in the blue,
not shooting
trap. Up there, that is not trap shooting.
No.
That is something else.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Or that's trap on a windy day.
No.
Yeah, he's shooting quite high there, I think.
Yeah, no, that's not a trap shooter.
The bottom left picture is Anna Semensis, who is our young ladies champion. She comes from a multi-generational trap shooting family, so best in Canada, that young person.
Yeah, I think she shoots in our. I think she shoots in our CUSF satellite competitions, and she wipes the floor with everybody.
Yeah. She just graduated from Guelph University. So
nice. So, Dean, why is skeet inferior to trap? Just joking. Nice. But what is skeet? What's the difference, right?
Well, I think I have to go now. I hear my Skeet has 8 stations in a semicircle, as you see there. As mentioned a few times already, on the left side of the field, you have the high house. On the right side, you have a low house. The skeet field in international and in American skeet are identical. The way a normal round works is you will shoot single targets. So from the high house, single targets from the low house, and on stations 1, 2, 6, and 7, and they're numbered from the high house to the low house. So if you go around stations 1, 2, 6, and 7, you will shoot doubles in a normal round of skeet. We also have skeet doubles where on all 7 stations along the semicircle, doubles are shot. The only stations that doubles are never shot at in a normal skeet round is station 8, which is, as you can see, on the baseline between station 1 and 2, or the high house and the low house. A perfect round of skeet will have you shooting 2 targets on the low house to finish the round. If you have missed a target at any point during your round, you shoot what's called your option shot. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't count as a miss, but it's where that 25th target fits in. So say you shoot station 1, you shoot the high, a low, and a double, no problem. You move to station 2, then you miss that first high 2, the first high 2 target. You'll shoot that target again, called your option, and then you complete the round shooting only high and low targets from stations 3, 4, and 5. And then stations 6 and 7, you shoot the high single, a low single, and a double. And because you've missed a target on station 2, when you do get to low station 8, which is your last station, you just shoot 1 target. In skeet, as mentioned, the targets come towards you, they go away from you, and you do have true crossing targets. And as mentioned, that high house that's been talked about a couple of times, is 10 feet above the ground, and the lowest is 3 feet above the ground.
So what you're saying is to keep it simple, don't miss.
Yeah.
And that
And
That's
why skeet shooters are teased that trap is more superior is because you always know where the skeet targets are going, and in trap you don't. So there's more variety.
The trap oscillates, so you never
Oscillates.
know where it's coming from.
And
Skeets
sometimes
just-
it comes out and you still don't know.
I tell my students there's no hard targets on a skeet field, but they're all easy to miss. So you got to work
Yeah.
for every target. And a similarity between trap shooting and skeet shooting, at least in the competitive world, is the vast majority of Canadian and American and international tournaments. There are international American skeet tournaments where you'll have competitors coming from all around the world.
Yeah.
Same as trap.
One similarity between skeet and trap is they're both sports of perfection. So generally, the winning score in skeet or trap is a perfect score of 100 out of 100, or whatever the event is scored out of. So when that happens, you have in skeet shooting, you have a shoot off. Sorry?
I said we have shoot-offs in both.
Right. So in skeet shooting, you shoot stations 3, 4, and 5. You shoot doubles. And again, you miss, you go off the line, and the winner is the only person that day that did not miss in that event. Unless 2 people miss in a shoot off, and then you shoot again.
So one thing you mentioned is the field is the same for international or North American. Is that the same in trap? The same field for
No.
international?
No.
No, different field.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll move on. We're going to go through a little bit of information about shotguns. So whenever you go to a range or new, what type of shotguns are you going to see on the range? And you know, how do you identify them? How do they work? What's best for the shooting sports, and what's maybe not the best? So Dean, if you want to go through some of the break action shotguns, what do we have here?
So with break action shotguns, you're going to see 3 different types. You're going to see single shot break action shotguns. You'll see side by sides where the barrels are side by side, and you'll see over under double barrel shotguns, and the barrels are mounted as such. And so I have mine, which has been proven safe. There's no shells in the gun, so this is a over under. With the break action shotguns, with the single shots, you will not see those in skeet shooting because you do shoot doubles all the time, but you do see a lot of single shot shotguns, break actions in trap shooting.
Yeah.
The operation of a break action shotgun is quite simple. The shells go in the chamber. You'll have, on most sporting guns, the safety is not automatic, but you'll find on any gun that's designed for field shooting, every time you shoot, every time you open the gun, the safety automatically engages. Where on my gun, when I close it, the safety is inherently on because I have it on, but when I start an event, we always check our safeties and our barrel selectors to make sure we're shooting the right barrel that we want first. And also, so we put the right ammo in. If I happen to have my bottom barrel selected as the first shot and I load my top barrel, that's a missed target because that's shooter error. That's not a gun or an ammo malfunction. So you'll have your safety on an over under that's generally back here and is controlled just on a knob. And the barrel selector is usually in the same place. On some guns, the barrel selector can be found behind the trigger. Shells go in the gun. Gun gets closed, and now if there were shells in the gun, you're ready to shoot once the safety is off.
So have you ever seen a side-by-side on a sport shooting?
A long time ago in Europe, when I first started shooting, which is over 50 years ago, some of the Europeans, the old guys would shoot a side by side, but now there's no advantage, and I don't see anyone shooting internationally a side by side at World Cups or Grand Prix.
So sorry, Emily, to make you get up again.
Yeah.
single shots. You want to show us that? And
Yeah.
You said they're typically they're seen in trap because you're only shooting one target at a
One
time,
barrel.
right? So
And one shell. Yeah.
one shell, yeah. So you won't have your selectors or anything like that? It's just
No, they're there because this is a combo. I have a double barrel that goes on the same stock, so, and has the same forend. So I can interchange this with the double barrel, so I can shoot doubles with it. Same idea, break action, you close it up, and you're ready to shoot.
And can you interchange that like in the middle of a competition without changing your point of aim? It's machined in a way that it keeps its accuracy. There's no change in your point of aim, point of impact by changing the barrels.
It will change, and so some people will shoot an over and under barrel for singles and doubles, and may shoot, if they're long yardage, may shoot the single barrel and handicap, so it can be set for the proper point of impact. So it kind of depends on where you are with respect to handicap. I wouldn't ever change it. I would always obviously change it to the double barrel when I'm shooting 2 targets. There's no other way to do that, but it is set for doubles as far as, you know, how it looks down the barrel, and where I shoot the target. And this is set for singles and handicap. So how, you know, where you want to hit the target. Do you want to cover it? Do you want to see it above the barrel? Right? And that you find out by patterning your gun at a board.
Nice. Susan, I have a question. What would be the disadvantage for shooting a side-by-side competitively? Like you probably don't see them very often, but
I don't see them at all. And I think it was because the side-by-side, it wasn't consistent in where it shot.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the problem with it. I have a side-by-side, but I would never shoot it in competition. I just have it because it's cool, but because I always wanted a side-by-side. But and the over and under, you know, it's set up so it shoots much more accurate than a side-by-side.
that makes sense. And then I have another question from Jacqueline. When shooting singles, everyone seems to use the under. Is there an advantage to using one over the other?
There's different kinds of single shot, of single barrel break action. So you can have a top single or a bottom single. I have a top single, so it just depends on the formatting of your gun, like what type of single barrel it is.
And the advantage of having a single barrel to shoot the singles event is that it moves easier. A lot of times in wind, if you've got a double barrel, you're going against wind. Well, the single will cut through it easier than the double.
Yeah.
And for some people, you know, the double barrel is just a bit heavier than a single barrel. And so the single barrel is easier to move.
Yeah.
So when you're using an over-under, do they use the top barrel typically shooting singles, or the bottom barrel typically?
Bottom barrel. The 2 barrels will have different chokes, or can have different chokes. So you would set your bottom barrel for your single target.
Is that the same in skeet?
In skeet shooting, generally you'll see shooters shooting the bottom barrel first. And the reason is because, as mentioned before, you'll shoot doubles in a normal event. So in having that bottom barrel shoot first, that's a lower center of gravity. So you will experience less muzzle rise shooting the bottom barrel over the top barrel, just in the fact that center of mass where that recoil wants to go on a bottom barrel is set lower. So generally you'll see in skeet shooting that bottom barrel going first, because you'll shoot the first shot, you won't experience as much muzzle rise, so your gun stays flat, so you can lock onto the next target and make another good shot with the top barrel on the second shot.
And usually with skeet and trap, when you're shooting doubles, the bottom barrel has a wider choke so that you can shoot it sooner.
Yeah.
You know,
we'll
so
get into chokes in a few slides, but that makes a lot of sense. We went through over-unders a little bit. Susan, is there anything that we didn't really mention about over-unders that you'd like to mention? They're obviously the most popular guns you see on the field, right?
Yeah, they are. Especially in international trap and skeet, that's all they have. All we shoot is over and unders, because you take 2 shots in American trap at international trap at every target. Well, you can't. You don't have to, but you can take 2 shots. I think the thing we've talked about before is with an over and under is how it's set up. And, you know, when you just make sure that when you're looking down the barrel, you know, you've patterned the gun as Emily has said, so you know where each barrel shoots. Most of us have it set up so they both shoot the same place, but some people don't. Some people have the top barrel shooting a little bit higher.
Okay. So if you're looking at a trap gun versus a skeet gun, is there anything that stands out? Like, can you use the same gun for both sports for
No,
over
the trap
unders?
guns have a longer barrel.
Yeah, yeah. Skeet guns are short. And
Yeah.
trap guns are long.
Okay.
So,
Now, what's long, like barrel length?
Well,
So 32 or 30-inch, 34-inch
Well,
barrel versus 28 and 30.
in international trap, the shortest is 30 inches or 29 point whatever, 30 inches. And the most anyone ever does in international is a 32 inch. In American trap,
Yeah.
you start sometimes the single barrel, the shortest is usually 32, and some people go up to 34, and I don't even know if they're going to 36. And sometimes their double barrel starts at 32 or 34. So in American trap, the barrels are longer.
Okay. Now, is there any advantage to having a longer barrel versus a shorter barrel? Like, it'll be heavier, so it'll absorb the weight or the recoil a little better. But as far as accuracy and pointing goes, does it make a difference?
In international trap, we want the shorter barrel because it moves better. You can move it quicker.
Makes sense.
And you see, an international trap originally came from shooting live pigeons, live birds. And so you want quick action.
That makes sense. So you can point it faster.
Yep.
Travis, there is actually a big shift happening in American skeet shooting right now, where you're seeing a lot of shooters getting into 32-inch guns.
Really?
My Beretta DT11 is a 32-inch barrel, and it's got the high rib, which is also something you used to see more in trap shooting. It is coming over to skeet shooting, mostly because for me, I like the long barrel because I find it swings a lot better. I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. There's a lot more weight, especially when I have the sub-gauge tubes in there. So right now I have 20-gauge tubes inside a 12-gauge barrel, which adds significant weight. So, you know, you have to be ready to handle that weight for the entirety of a weekend in a tournament, and it does take some getting used to. I'm only 5'10", I'm only 180 pounds, and for guys, that's not that much. So this is a big gun for me, but I enjoy it very much. I find when I pull the trigger and take a shot, the long barrels help keep me going through my follow through. And just having that a little bit extra sighting plane when I got my eye focused on the target, and subconsciously I see the barrel, but I'm not focused on the barrel at any point. I'm always focused on the target. Having that little bit extra sighting plane, it makes a little bit of a difference. Is it perceivable? I don't know. I like having the extra weight because it's less felt recoil. And you're seeing the high rib now because in skeet shooting, the longest shot you're going to take if you're shooting the targets in the right spot is about 25 yards. If you're shooting targets past 25 yards in skeet shooting, you're riding targets far too long. And having the high rib, I'm set up for a higher point of impact than skeet shooters used to set up for. So there is a shift happening where skeet shooters are starting to do things that trap shooters have done for a long, long time.
Yeah. It's funny, I find...
You're finally seeing the light.
Come into the light.
Yeah.
I find sometimes looking at trap guns, the rib looks ridiculous, right? Like not being a trap shooter, it's
like
a ladder. An inch. Yeah, exactly. It's very high. And the other thing on that you mentioned on over-unders, you can have your selector lever to select the barrels, or it can switch mechanically or with inertia. Whenever the shot is taken, it'll switch to the other barrel. Is that the same for both trap and skeet guns as well? Yep. Fair enough.
We're nodding. We're all nodding.
Yeah. All nodding. Yep. Like I said, there are no stupid questions. Yes. All right. Pump action shotguns. Emily, what do you see? Do you see a lot of pump action shotguns on the trap field?
You do, and yeah, okay. I have my semi-auto, not my pump, but
That'll
yeah.
be next.
Yeah, I have it here. So yeah, you do see some, but I'm gonna say that those are sometimes a bit limiting, I guess. Certainly if you're going to shoot doubles, it's very difficult to pump 2 shots because it is a manual action. So it's difficult to keep the, the gun in place so you've got your right line of sight in order to shoot. So it is manually operated. You're going to put a shell into the chamber, and then you're going to thrust the forend forward in order to close the action in order to activate the shotgun ready to shoot. So you do see them. They're cheaper to purchase, so they are, they are often recommended as a starter gun. But I'm going to suggest that they don't have a lot of longevity if you're going to be doing clay target shooting. As far as comfort and accuracy, they're probably not going to interest you for very long. You can see on this picture the stock part, the wood part where you would put your cheek on. Often pump guns are going to have what we call a field stock because they're generally used for hunting. And so you're going to have a slightly different stock. For example, if I look at my semi-automatic, you can see that I have a raise in the stock, which is elevates your face onto the wood. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But what's
this one,
interesting with pump guns is back in the 50s and 60s, the last gold medal that Canada won in the Olympics in shotgun shooting was a 17-year-old man by the name of George Genru, and he was 17 and he pumped and shot the international and shocked everyone. All the newspaper articles, because I did my master's thesis on the history, were just astounded that this guy used a pump action. And then in the 64 Olympics, my father also used a pump action and ended up 9th. And that's when Canada didn't even have an Olympic range.
So they can be competitive, but you don't see them.
They're hard.
You don't see them too much anymore.
But it's always impressive to watch someone with a pump action shooting doubles or shooting bunker. Nowadays, no one shoots it in international trap, but you can still see somebody with a pump action on doubles.
Yeah.
So if you want to make a statement, show up with a pump.
Yeah.
And win.
Real quickly.
But make sure you're fast.
Yeah. I'm one of the people who is blessed at being cross-eye dominant. So I've got this one. It's a Browning BPS. So you'll notice on the picture on the screen, you see the loading port on the side. This one is bottom load, bottom eject, because I'm a lefty and I don't like shells flying across my face.
Oh,
so
how come?
One of the options. I'm a wimp, I guess.
Travis, you'd like this left-handed Remington 1100.
Oh.
I would.
Yeah.
Wow. So next we have semi-automatic. Emily, you had your semi there.
I have a right-handed 1100. So semi-automatic means that I'll take this off because you're able to have a number of shells in it. This one has a maximum of 5, but inside this tube, it's gas operated. So it utilizes the pressure from the shell in order to reset the gun for the next shell. And they're still used quite often. And the reason that they're actually popular sometimes amongst young shooters, new shooters, or women shooters is they did tend to have a little lighter recoil. I think that's not really true so much anymore with lighter loads and recoil reducer options with over and unders. But this is a very functional gun. My second gun had 100,000 shells through it when it was given to me, and I shot it last year on Canada Day just to take it out and give it a blast. So Yeah, so the inertial energy, yeah, and they're very dirty. The Thank you. The inertial energy is gas operated. Yeah, just what I said. So every time you pull the trigger, the shell goes off, and then this gas operation resets for the next shell and reduces some of the recoil from the shot.
Yeah, I think the semi-automatic, that was my first gun. And I ended up setting North American records with my 1100.
Yeah.
And it's a good gun. And it's really good for people to learn. It's not quite so scary. I think the semi-automatic is a really good gun to start with, or even to shoot for a long time if you want.
Yeah, they're like tanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
except I tried it shooting international my first 2 years of shooting international style. And at that time, the load in international was so heavy that it was constantly breaking. So after every round, I'd have to clean the gun and I'd have to have a pair of them because they were always breaking down. So in American style, they were good, but international, no.
This is a single barrel. This is Frank's Ludic, Susan, that he got back recently, and it has 7 moving parts. That's it.
Yeah.
So, you know, easy to clean, easy to maintain, whereas a semi-automatic tends to have a lot of parts, like you say, and it breaks down more often, and you have to be a little bit more of a mechanic to have it at a competition or to shoot it regularly.
Simple is good.
Yeah.
We have another question from Jacqueline. If you have a pump, should you still show up and give it a try? I suspect the answer is yes. Shoot what you have. You're still going to have fun. And you might develop better skills, right? You're challenging yourself.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Jacqueline might have to do something with the stock because, as Emily was saying, they tend to be field stocks, so they don't fit quite so well. And you might have to maybe get some moleskin and build it up a bit so that you can see down the barrel better. But you know, pumps are great.
Yep. Shoot what you got, right?
Yeah.
This was my very first shotgun, and this is what I shot skeet with the very first time. It is also a Maverick 88. This is a 12 gauge. It's the same shotgun except the one in the giveaway has got the camo stock and forend. But yeah, I showed up. This is, you know, I was 19 years old when I got my PAL. This is the only thing I could afford. And yeah, I took it out to Uxbridge Range, north of Toronto, and this is how I got started. So you can absolutely show up with a pump gun, and I encourage you to if you have one.
Yep.
And one thing we'll mention at the Shotgun 101 clinics that we're going to put on, you're not going to be shooting any doubles. So having a pump won't make a difference. We're going to be focusing on fundamentals. And as far as fit goes, we can use the Project Maple Seed approach, put some foam and some vet wrap on there, and we'll get your cheek height right.
Moleskin. Strips of moleskin.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get you fitted right for.
You don't have to bring your own mold.
Skin it.
Yeah. So we mentioned shotguns come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. There's a bunch of different gauges. Dean, whenever you're shooting skeet, you require multiple gauges to be used. But what do you typically see on the skeet field?
So generally on the skeet field, you see 12 gauge shotguns. They're the most common shotgun out there. They're the easiest ammo to acquire. And that's, you know, if you go to your local gun shop, they're probably going to put you into a 12 gauge shotgun. You do not need all 4 gauges to shoot skeet unless you want to shoot full tournaments. But even then, a lot of tournaments these days in Canada are shifting to 200 target format as opposed to the 500 target format. And we're really trying to push the 12 gauge and 20 gauge because those are the 2 most common, 12 being the most common. We're trying to really push the 12 and 20 gauge only competitions so we can get more people involved. It's not required by any stretch. You don't need it to go to your local club to shoot skeet. You could go with your 12 gauge and have a great time. If you are shooting and you do intend on shooting 4 gun competitions, so you shoot 12, 20, 28, and 410 bore, then you're either going to require a 4-barrel set, so that could be an over-under that comes with all 4 barrels, or you can do what a lot of shooters are doing now with, and you can have, like I mentioned, in my shotgun right now is the 20 gauge tube. These would be 410, and I have 2 of these, and they go in the barrel. They fit the full length of the gun, and these are called sub-gauge tube sets. This is the easiest way because you don't need to own 4 guns, or you don't need to own a 4-barrel set. The tube set is the most economical way to get involved in full skeet competitions. And like I said, in my 12 gauge right now, I have the 20 gauge tubes. I also have 28 gauge tubes in my case here, and then you have the little gun, the 410.
So when it comes to, sorry,
Travis, there's one thing is a bit misleading. 10 gauge are not the most common in trap and skeet.
no, that was meant to be 410, 28, 20, 16, 12, and 10
that,
gauge. Yeah,
but
so
no, that would
10
be,
you don't see.
that would be skeet, because trap we only do 12.
Okay.
Only
So
12.
there's no, that makes sense. Can you shoot it with 20 if you want, or you must shoot 12?
Can, but there's no advantage.
No.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll go to a store, and I'm going to say this as a woman. Sometimes the women will go into stores and they will be convinced that a 20 gauge will be less recoil and they should buy a 20 gauge. Do not go to a regular gun store and get bad advice. Like, go to a range first, get some advice from people there. A 12 gauge with, if you want, light shells and recoil reducers, like it's fine to shoot a 12 gauge when it fits you, regardless of what size you are, however petite you are. Don't be convinced into a 20 gauge for trap.
Because actually 20 gauges kick more.
Because they're lighter.
There's more recoil with a 20. There is. There is. I've shot them. And your best bet is the 12 and making sure you have recoil reducers, light ammo.
Yep.
Your best bet.
Proper hold, proper fit.
Yep. For at least in trap.
Yep.
So really the takeaway for shotgun gauge is the bigger the number, the smaller the diameter, except for 410, that's on its own. And 12 gauge, just set it and forget it. Buy a 12 gauge, go from there. That being said, we're giving away a 20 gauge, so. So chokes, I got one in the end of my barrel here. It screws into the end. Emily, what do chokes do? People may or may not know.
Right, so chokes basically restrict the shot pattern as it goes out. So inside a shotgun shell, you're going to have a little cup that holds the little pellets. And depending on where you're going to be hitting the target, you want that pattern to open up either closer or further out over the range. So a choke will allow you to set that distance really for where that spread takes place. So you can see here we have cylinder bore, we have full choke, modified and improved cylinder. And again, it depends on your gun, how it patterns. It depends what distance you anticipate shooting the target at. And again, some recoil implications as well.
So most modern guns will have removable chokes that you can adjust. Some older ones will have fixed chokes.
Actually, what's happening in Europe is a lot of they're doing away with all the different variety of chokes. And in the international trap, they're just sticking to fixed chokes for both upper and lower barrels.
Yeah. So your barrel will your double barrel will automatically come with the 2 chokes that you would need, right?
Yeah.
If you're shooting doubles, one will be closer and the second target will be further out. So you're going to have your chokes adjusted for that. Yeah. Just because you're taking longer to shoot the second target.
And Dean, that's the same in skeet. You're probably going to have 2 different chokes for the different barrels. Over or under.
Generally not. The majority of shooters will just shoot in a competition skeet and skeet, 2 skeet chokes. If you are a person that's newer or you just tend to ride your second shot a little longer, then it is recommended that on your second shot on your top barrel, if that is the way you shoot it, on your top barrel, you will have a tighter choke just so that you could reach out a little bit farther and get that second target. I myself, I shoot skeet on both, top and bottom. And when I'm doing training, regardless of the gauge that I'm shooting, I shoot modified chokes in both. I don't recommend that for new shooters. It's not a good way to learn the game, because you want to learn the game building good confidence, and you don't do that by missing targets. So generally in skeet shooting, when I'm getting my new shooters going, we get them into cylinder or skeet on top and bottom. Either or is good, because a new shooter is going to use the edge of their pattern a little bit more than an experienced shooter will. Generally, experienced shooters, if you're watching in a tournament, you'll see targets being hit harder or turned to smoke. So they're using that center of the pattern, or wherever they've set the center of their pattern. And the new shooters, if you are going to tighten up your choking, have a smaller pattern, and all you're going to do is miss more, and it's not going to help you learn where the center of your pattern is. So yeah, I shoot skeet and skeet. I recommend that most shoot the same. But if you are newer, or you ride that second target a little longer, then it is a good idea to tighten up that top barrel.
And we mentioned a bunch of times patterning your shotgun, right? So really quickly, Emily, if you had to give like a few points on patterning to determine what choke you would use, what do you do to pattern?
Right. So you're gonna take your gun to a stationary board that is given at the gun club. It's going to be a specific place where you go, and sometimes you'll have grease on it so you can see the pattern of the shot hitting it, or a big piece of paper. And then you're going to go a prescribed distance back with one shell, and you're going to shoot at the stationary board. You're going to go to that board, and you're going to draw a circle of about 36 inches in diameter, and you're going to look and see where the concentration of the pellets are. So is it mostly center? Are most of the pellets above the center line, the diameter center? And you're going to see basically where your gun is shooting, and then you determine from your shooting style where you want that gun to be shooting. And then you can make adjustments to your sight and where your gun shoots on your sort of variable comb or whatever you have, or maybe you're going to be raising with moleskin your stock a little bit to adjust your point of impact. I did want to mention, because Dean talked about blowing up a target, obliterating, having smoke left behind. It should be noted that whether you take a chip off a target or you obliterate a target in competition, it scores as a hit. So
a hit is a hit.
Right, but if you are chipping a target, it sends that feedback immediately to you saying, that was lucky, you need to be better, you need to kind of go back to your fundamentals in order to have a better break of the next target, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think one thing to mention too is every shotgun patterns differently, right? You can have two Maverick 88s, and they're likely to pattern. Maybe they're completely different, maybe they're similar, but you should pattern your shotgun. I think
and also how it fits you is what makes the difference. Is that you can have two Maverick 88s, you could have two shotgun Remington 1100s, you could have two Parazzis. And how it fits you, how you mount it, how it fits on your face, the fit of it will determine how it patterns, and
that makes sense. Okay, so we'll move on. Ammunition, really quickly. Dean, what types of ammunition, like we see on the bottom, there's different sizes of shells, but what's the really important thing about using the proper ammunition for your shotgun? How do you know, where do you look?
With keeping time in mind, the most important thing in skeet shooting, and I know that it's talked about a lot in trap shooting, is your BB size or your shot size. Generally in skeet shooting, number 9 is the most common, and that's because most of our shots are within that 25-yard distance. So you want smaller pellets, so you have more density in your pattern, and we're not worried about having stopping power, shooting like in handicap trap, where I don't even know how, we'll get into that, how far some of those shots can be if you're, riding it a bit longer, whatever, but you want, in that, you want a slightly larger BB so it has a little bit extra oomph when it hits the target to make sure that it breaks it. So in terms of skeet shooting, number 9 is the way to go. If you're reloading, I shoot 8.5, and that's just because of more consistent BB sizes, but it's not uncommon sometimes that you will see shooters shooting number 8, and occasionally in skeet shooting you will see 7.5 I'm talking American skeet shooting. So you're looking at BB size more than anything. Most ranges will not allow you to shoot anything larger than 7.5. So you have to keep that in mind if you're showing up to the range with double aught buck, which I mean is not going to be fun anyways if you're allowed to, but most ranges do not allow it. That's because of shot fall areas on skeet and trap ranges. They want to make sure that all the shot lands within the prescribed distance that the Chief Firearms Office has allowed, so you don't have any stray pellets going farther than you think. So generally what you're looking at is velocity of that shell, and you're looking at shot size. With skeet shooting, I try to get most of my shooters shooting, lighter, slower stuff, because again, in American skeet, the targets are very close. We don't need that extra stopping power. So if you're in the 1100 to 1200 foot per second range and you're shooting number 8s or number 9s, you're not gonna see any performance differences generally as a new shooter. So if you're getting into that 1100 to 1200 foot per second, number 8, number 9 shot, you're looking pretty good.
And Susan, for trap, yeah, how does that work?
In trap, this is an international shell, and it's 24 grams, and that's the amount of shot, and then the amount of powder, isn't it, grams? And then the size shot is 7.5. And so that's generally in international trap, we use 7.5. Some people use 8 on the first shot, but most people use the 7.5. They're looking at the velocity, the speed about 1250 to 1350. In American trap, people shoot 8, 8.5, 7.5.
Mhm.
And
So
8.5, you get more pellets in the shell, and 7.5, you get fewer, but they're heavier, so they're great in the wind.
yeah, and they break. They're supposed to break better.
Yeah.
So again, the higher the number, the smaller the pellet.
What is happened over the years. And in international, as I was saying earlier, when we first started, it was 1.25 ounces. Now we're down to 7/8 of an ounce.
Yeah.
And that changes a lot. And in American trap, most people like their 1.25 ounces or their 1 ounce. I think the 1 ounce load is probably the best load ever made, but they only kept it internationally for 4 years, and then they went to the 7/8 or 24 grams.
Yeah.
And it just is such, less recoil, and it's.
And generally you use 2 3/4 inch shells.
Yep.
Yep. Makes sense. So real quickly, we have on here the shells. So your gun is going to tell you what shells you can use. On the side of mine, it says 12 gauge, 2 3/4 and 3 inch. So it'll tell you if it only says 3 inch, you can use 2 3/4 as well, but you can't use 3.5.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on. Just looking at the basic parts of a shotgun, because we're going to be talking about how a shotgun fits and how to mount things properly. So really quickly, Dean, can you go through what you're going to see on the front of the gun?
Yeah, so from the muzzle side back, you have your muzzle. That's the very front edge of the shotgun that's attached to your barrel. On your rib, on most sporting guns, so used for the shooting sports, you're going to find a front bead and a mid bead. On field guns, generally, because they are shorter guns, anything less than 28 inch generally only has a single front bead. And that's because, in field shooting, generally you're not, pre-mounting the gun, or, you startle a bird, you mount, you shoot. You're not overly concerned about that perfect mount every single time. The mid bead on sporting guns is really only good for learning whether or not your mount is consistent. What it shows you when you mount a gun, any shotgun with a mid bead, what you want to see is that front bead sitting just on top of the middle bead. They should make what some people call the figure 8. And if you have both beads in line and they're stacked one on top of another, generally you know your mount is good, consistent, and you're going to be shooting generally where you want it to be. You have the fore end. That's where your front arm, your non-grip hand grips the fore end. And on a pump gun, that's the action that you work as well. The action of the gun for a pump gun or a semi-auto functions based on its type of shotgun. So the pump gun, the action is worked with that fore end. On a semi-auto, it's either inertia or it's gas operated. And then you have the trigger, and then there's also other parts just on the front there where you'll have your safety and barrel select, or not for a pump or a semi-auto, but you'll have your barrel selectors there as well.
Okay.
One thing I have to say, the sights don't always line up that way. Some people like their sights to line up right in a line. Some like to have quite a bit of distance between. But
I guess it'll depend on how your gun fits you, right?
Yep.
And your personal preference.
And how you set it up as well. So if you're shooting a 50-50 where generally your pattern is going to be 50% above the gun, 50% below, you're going to have that one sight in front of the other picture. And that's personal preference for the most part, like Susan was saying.
Yep. So we'll go to the back of the gun. We're going to be talking a little bit about this. So your column, grip, and heel. Can you describe a little bit of that, Dean?
Yep. So your grip is obviously where your, just show you my gun. So the grip is where the dominant hand grabs onto the gun. So that's your grip right there. On my gun, you'll see you have a comb up here, and this is an adjustable comb, so it can be brought back and forth, up or down, to adjust where your eye sits above the rib. You have the butt of the gun, which is back here. Mine is set up a little different because it has an adjustable butt plate. The heel of the recoil pad is at the top, the toe is at the bottom. We'll talk about how mine has toe out a little bit later. As you can see, the shotgun goes up and down, but the toe of this shotgun is cast out just a little bit. And then, yeah, your recoil pad, that's the squishy bit that sits next in your pocket, which is right here.
Susan?
And this just has a straight pad, but it has the a comb that is soft, and it comes up and can go left, back and forth, and up and down.
Built for comfort.
Yep.
Nice. All right.
Wait, I was feeling left out.
Okay.
Where's mine? I have a pistol grip on mine.
Yeah.
That's
That looks
beautiful.
comfortable.
Everybody's different.
Can you see
Very
it?
cool.
We can,
Yeah,
yeah. So that'll give you a consistent grip, right? Because your hand only fits.
Absolutely. Yep. Every time, same time. That's the key to success.
And I have a bit of a grip in here, just here, that my hand fits in.
Yeah, mine's similar on the hunting style gun, so it's similar to Susan's, but yours looks longer.
No,
It's
style-
different, but it's not the pistol grip, yeah.
the hunting style doesn't have the swell here.
Yeah.
Where your palm is.
Yeah. So Susan, whenever we talk about length of pull, is there usually, like, sometimes you see the quick and easy way to determine that, where does your finger line up on the trigger? Why is length of pull an important measurement? And I guess, first of all, what is it?
Well, people say, well, the length of pull is from the butt to the trigger. And some people, what Emily's doing is showing you that they go from your elbow to the trigger, but I have a long stock, so if I did that, it wouldn't fit me. And I have a long stock because of my style, because I mount the gun here and I go forward a lot with my neck. So the length of pull is just the distance you have from the butt to the trigger.
So if it's
I
too
don't-
short or too
And I
long, what
have
are the
to tell you,
implications?
I don't put as much stock into the length of pull as some people do. I think it's how it fits, how when you mount the gun. And for some people, and especially with young people, when if they're still growing, you end up having to lengthen it. If you get one size stock, you have to lengthen it because they get taller and they get long, they're bigger.
And the triggers slide it. You can adjust a small bit in the length of pull, right? Triggers can go
Not mine.
forward and back.
Not
Some
mine.
do. Yeah.
It's old.
So Dean, your drop at comb, what does that refer to?
So the drop at the comb is, if you were to draw a line from the rib and you continue that line back to the comb, the drop at the comb is the distance where that imaginary line from the rib, the measurement between where the rib would be and the front of the comb.
Okay. We have the drop at face.
So when you're talking drop at face, you'll see that on more field style guns. My gun has a parallel comb. So at any point on my comb, if I put my face here or here or here or here, I'm going to have the same set picture down the rib. So with a field gun, when you'll have a more slanted stock, like on Travis's gun, the drop at the face is the distance from that imaginary line from the rib to the center where your face or wherever your face will sit on the comb.
Yeah, so mine kind of
Your
drops.
stock is called a Monte Carlo because
This
it's
is
the
a
same all the way across.
This is a Monte Carlo stock, yes.
Yep.
So at the heel.
Okay,
the
so
heel?
this is where my gun will look a little bit different because the heel of my recoil pad is set down from where the heel of the butt plate would be. And the reason is, for me, it's just a fitment thing. We're not going to get too deep into gun fit today, but we'll get deep enough for informational purposes. But for me, the distance essentially between my eye and where my pocket is, I have to raise my gun up a little higher so that when I mount my gun, I'm not burying my head down in the gun. So when I mount my gun, my head can stay completely upright. So you can see the recoil pad is sitting nicely in my pocket and the gun is being elevated up to my cheek. So when I mount, I'm not sitting like this where the gun would normally be with my head buried down in the gun like this. So that's just a preference and a fit thing. So that is your drop at the heel, the line from the rib all the way back, and that distance, that measurement. The drop at the heel on my gun would be quite significant.
Emily, for the cast of a gun, are trap guns often, do they have cast to them? And what is cast, first of all?
And yeah, for sure. So if you're left or right-handed, you want to have a bit of a cast off in order that your face lines up better, or your eye will line up better right down the barrel through the beads. It's become more popular. It used to be a straight barrel or straight stock. Now you can get cast off for right-handed or left-handed shooters. You won't get one probably in a standard firearm for shooting.
So it's in more of the specialized overenders, you're going to see that. And same with, sorry?
Yeah, so if you have a straight stock that doesn't have all the adjustable stuff, which is certainly what existed when we started shooting, you often fit yourself to the gun. Now it's a four-way adjustment for these modern stocks, so that you can create cast on or cast off by making these adjustments to the stock. So you can literally buy a gun that has the adjustable features and you can make it fit just about anyone, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess the other thing, the pitch, so the angle of the back of the stock, does that change for trap at all?
If you're having some problems with shooting consistently, often people will say check your pitch and see if that's a problem. So you would put your gun against a wall and see how far out it comes out. You can adjust it again with all of the adjustable features to make sure that your pitch is, and then you would adjust it, take it back to the pattern board, see if it accomplished what you intended. If you want to know how to adjust the pitch to fix a problem that you think you have at the range, YouTube's your place to go.
Well, the one thing about pitch is that it can really have an effect. If the pitch isn't right, it can kick.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just hits and it kicks. And so a lot of times, one of the first things you should check is the pitch.
Yeah, that's
You're
true.
getting smacked.
Yeah, cheap smack. It depends on where your gun is coming back versus picking up. Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Susan. Yeah.
So one, actually, I'll answer that question in just a second. We're going to get into shooting stance next. Dean was a model on the weekend and took a bunch of pictures for our presentation, and he's showing in this picture the proper shooting stance. So Dean, do you want to show on video how do you assume the proper stance for a skeet?
Yeah, so in skeet shooting, and we'll let Susan and Emily talk about trap shooting, but they're very, 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 very similar. You can't see my legs here, and I can't get my camera to work properly. But just like in most sports, you're never going to be standing with your feet together and your knees straight. You're going to be very wobbly, and your center of mass isn't strong. So in most sports, you're going to have your knees. In skeet shooting, you're going to have your feet shoulder width apart, bend both knees, and then you're going to take your center of mass and bring it 60 to 70% of your weight over top of your lead leg. As a right-handed shooter, your lead leg is your left leg. As a left-handed shooter, I'm going to bring my weight over to my left leg, left-handed.
Sorry.
That's good.
What you don't want to see in your shooting stance when you're making one shot or you're shooting doubles is you don't want that weight distribution to change in the middle of a shot or at the end. You have 60 to 70% of your weight on that lead leg. So whether you're making a hard right turn to break a target or you're turning left, that weight distribution should stay on the lead leg the same throughout the entirety of the shot sequence. You do not want to be shifting your weight as you're tracking targets.
Makes sense. And is that pretty well the same for trap? You want to have that athletic type of stance?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called, I always call it an athletic stance. And you have your front foot, if you're right-handed, your front foot is about at 1 o'clock. And your back foot is about at 2:30, 3 o'clock. And again, your weight is about 60 to 70% ahead. And I don't ever recommend bending your knees. I just stand relaxed. Then you just shift your weight so it's 60 to 70% on the front leg.
So just don't have straight knees. Just have a natural.
But just be relaxed. It's the thing about in trap shooting people were doing, and I think in skeet shooting too, they're really bending their knee forward, and that's so inconsistent. And it's also a stress on your body you don't need. And if you're shooting 300 targets in a day, might as well just make it as comfortable and as simple as possible. So again, the athletic stance, 1 o'clock and 2:30 or 3 o'clock, weight again, like in skeet, 60 to 70% on the front leg. And then you move, and I always say you move from your ankles, especially in international trap, you move from your ankles. A lot of American style trap shooters just use their upper body, but it's more efficient if you use your whole body.
Like a turret. I say like a turret.
Yeah.
Move like a turret. Also, I suggest if I'm standing on the line ready to shoot, if someone were to take the gun away, they really wouldn't actually know what I'm doing. They would see me standing there, comfortable, relaxed, ready to ready for shooting or anything else. It's a very comfortable stance.
It's the same stance that you use in a serve in volleyball.
Yeah.
It's the same stance if you want it. If you just turned a bit and you're golfing, it's the same. It's the athletic stance.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the more important things in shotgun shooting would be determining your eye dominance. So Emily, why is that important? And I guess we'll get into how we're going to do that.
Yeah, okay. So eye dominance is really important because you're tracking a moving target. So your dominant eye will pick up the movement of the target, and it will allow or not allow you to shoot accurately. You are holding your gun up, it's to your face. So if your right eye is the one that's going down the barrel, if that's not your dominant eye, your left eye dominant, it will pick up the tracking, and you won't be accurate in your shooting. If you are left eye dominant and right body dominant, so you would shoot right-handed, you may need to do some slight adjustment. Sometimes people will say close your left eye or obliterate it somehow, but honestly, proper hold, eyes wide open, adjust your movement and your point of impact to accommodate for your eye dominance. Susan, do you have other thoughts on it?
Well, I think if someone is, okay, the right eye dominant and the right-handed, then that's great.
No problem.
If they're left eye dominant and right-handed, I think for the most part, you're better off to learn to shoot left-handed.
And that's what I did.
Yeah, I think that's the best. And it's really interesting to see how people have been able to adjust.
Yeah. So I shoot shotgun and rifle left-handed, even though I'm right-handed, but I shoot pistol right-handed and just hold it over my left eye because you can. But I had to learn how to shoot long guns left-handed because it was just I'm really strongly left eye dominant.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was easier to do that than try to change the dominance of my eye.
I think statistically,
really
women are more likely to be cross dominant.
No, I think that's a bunch of crap. There's this one guy that's has been preaching that. So I talked to some eye specialists, and their exact words, crap.
Perfect.
I think the important thing to note here is that eye dominance is it's not a simple topic. It can be complex. It's not always straightforward, and there's exceptions everywhere. Like we're going to go through a quick eye dominance test next, and this is kind of a rule of thumb that'll probably work for 75% of people, but there might be situations where it doesn't work. So Susan, if you were going to test eye dominance, is there a way that you would do that? Like using the point to the corner?
So what I do is I have someone take their non-dominant forefinger and point to, let's say, a lamp or a clock or a light or something, and that's fairly close, and you have both eyes open and you're pointing at it. And so then you close your left eye and note if your index finger stays on that or not. In my case, it does. Then you open your eyes and you close your right eye. And mine goes way over here. And then you open. And I find that is the easiest way to do it. And some people, it moves a little bit with both. So then I have them go, so let's say it moves a little bit both ways, right eye or left eye. I just have them shoot with on their dominant side.
Yeah. So like you said, the results when you close you can determine what eye is dominant based off if your finger is still pointing where you were aiming.
Yeah.
And again, it's likely that that's where you're dominant. Is there a situation where the eye dominance will change based off of where you're looking? Like for a rifle or pistol, if you're looking at the end of your front sight versus shotgun whenever you're looking off in the distance, is it possible your eye dominance would change, or is it
focus?
It's pretty well the same?
Your focus changes, but not your eye dominance. What's an interesting thing that I read was about with eye dominance, if you're having a bit of, let's say your eyes aren't doing real well and you're having a little trouble, if you squeeze, like when you're shooting, if you squeeze your right hand, like you squeeze the grip as you call, it helps to put some stimulus to the right eye, your dominant eye.
Interesting. So, like I said, eye dominance, if you're missing targets, is it possible you're using the wrong eye? So are there some examples whenever you've done this test, somebody says, okay, I've done the point test, it says I'm left eye dominant, but they're just, all their fundamentals are sound, but they're missing?
So
Yeah.
I actually, sorry. I had, right before the lockdown, I had a perfect example of this happening. So I had a 16-year-old shooter, and this was literally a month and a half ago, right before the last lockdown. And I was working with him, and he showed me fairly strong right eye dominance. Doing the basic stationary eye dominance tests, I was comfortable having him go out shoot both eyes open, right-handed, because he appeared right eye dominant. What ended up happening out on the field showed that there was a cross dominance. Both eyes wanted to play. Now, in skeet shooting, that's different than American trap shooting, is you'll have targets emerging from both sides. Okay. So what happened with this young lad, he's on station 7, where I start most of my new shooters shooting incoming targets. I showed him using a walk the target technique. So I showed him generally what he wants to see for his sight picture to break the target. And he was unable to replicate this. Okay. So after, 3 or 4 missed shots, and from my perspective, having, 700 some odd hours watching people shoot, it was very obvious that his left eye, because the target was emerging from his left side, the left eye was grabbing onto those targets, and it was causing him to have a visual deception where he thought he was seeing the target with his right eye, but in reality he was getting the wrong image up in his brain, so he couldn't hit the target. So just for curiosity's sake, I said, blank name, could you close your left eye on the next shot? So he closed his left eye. I walked the target for him so he could see what it would look like. Smashed it. Okay, do it again, prove it not a fluke. Again, close the left eye, mounts the gun, calls, smashes the target. Okay, then we went over to the other side of the field, station 1, where he shot an incomer from the low house. Now the target's emerging from his right side. I said, have both eyes open and shoot the target. First 2 shots, 2 broken birds. So what we ended up having to do on the skeet field, it's very common. On the trap, I don't know how common it is, but we put a small ocular occluder that blocks the non-dominant eye from seeing 6 inches on each side of the gun. Because on a skeet field, at the muzzle, there's no target that's going to appear to be larger than 6 inches. So what ends up happening now, when the target emerges from the left, he has full peripheral vision. He sees the target. As that target comes into the kill zone, or the break zone, as it gets within that 6 inches of the muzzle, the left eye, his non-dominant eye, gets blocked out from seeing the target, while his right eye picks up the target. And now when he pulls the trigger, he's got no visual deceptions. The eye that is over top of the gun is the eye that's focused on the target, and the problem was squashed. So yes, you can show strong eye dominance, but there can be weird things that happen based on just who you are and your anatomy that causes you to have visual deceptions because of the level of eye dominance that you may show.
And
Sorry, go ahead,
tiredness
Susan.
too, Dean. I've seen that happen as well. And even it happened with me learning international doubles, that because they were so different. And so I had to work harder on it because I was picking it up with my left. And I noticed that if I was tired, if I had been working, been reading, whatever, my eyes were tired, my left eye liked to take that left target.
That's interesting. So at our Shotgun 101 clinic, if a coach is noticing that you're having some problems picking up the target, the simple fast solution, put a piece of Scotch tape on the shooting glasses for now, and that, or some sort of occluder, and that will hopefully getting them going. Noah has a question.
Dean suggested was really good, and that is, so many people now have made the mistake, they cover the whole glass with a bunch of tape, and you don't have to. You just need to, as he said, just take it so it actually sort of the size of your eyeball or your pupil, and you just put it there, and as Dean was explaining, you still have your peripheral vision, but it stops picking up when
Taking
your
them.
eyes normally pick up a target. And that's the best way. You don't need a big one. You just need a little
Dime
piece
size. Yeah.
of dime.
Yes.
Yeah. So I got a couple questions. Noah, where can you buy an occluder for shooting glasses? I definitely have this problem.
Okay, so I need 1 second, but you can buy them online. You can usually find the ones that I have online on even on Amazon sometimes. But I'll show you exactly what mine look like.
So Emily, there's a question for you. You talked about shooting glasses earlier. Is
Yeah.
there so is there a recommended setting for shooting glasses? And I guess where would you get them? Just your optometrist or?
Yeah, there's a range of shooting glasses, and they are basically reflective of the cost. So everything from, you can get regular shooting glasses from any sporting goods store that sells shooting or hunting gear, all the way up to, special, multicolored lenses. Yeah, here mine are in the basement, and prescription. So, start off with a basic clear lens and work from there. If you have prescription lenses, then yes, you need to go to your optometrist, and there are special optometrists who deal in the shooting sports particularly. There's one here in Burlington where I live, and they actually will fit you so that you have that corrective lens right where you would be focusing to shoot, not in the normal lens placement. So
Generally, I found asking your normal optometrist about shooting glasses doesn't get me very far. You want to see somebody who knows what they're talking about. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna move forward because we're a bit short on time, so we got to.
Depending where they are, we can recommend someone.
The question that was asked though, these are the occluders that I use, and I will even cut them smaller. They're about nickel size now, but I will cut them smaller for my more experienced shooters. These are called Magic Dots. If you Google Magic Dot, you can find this exact pack. And then if you, whatever color your lens is, you can match it with that, so it's seamless. These are not opaque. You can actually see through them, but they blur your vision enough that the eye that it's over cannot focus on the target.
Yeah, beautiful.
Makes sense.
Or if you don't want to
so-
spend the money, tape.
Yep, Scotch tape. That's probably what we're going to use at the clinics. Cheap and easy. So gun mount, Emily, for a trap gun mount, would you be able to demonstrate kind of what you're going to do, and why is it important that it's repeatable?
Yeah, so really you want to be able to repeat and be consistent, so you mount your gun in the same way every time. That's how you do it. Here, Susan's going to mount her gun there. So you want to look for a little pocket in your shoulder when you raise your arm. You put the gun butt end into the pocket, and you need to have a tight cheek weld, I guess we can call it, like someone is glued your cheek to the stock, so that wherever you move to get the target, you are always stuck like your gun is a part of you and moves with you. As long as your eye can go down the barrel and line up with the barrel, wherever you move your gun barrel, you will shoot where your eye is looking. So you need to have that every time so that you are successful at hitting the target every time. When people miss targets, it's because they've lifted their head. So even if you lift it like half an inch here, it translates into several feet difference out there from where you're looking. You'll have a problem with recoil, and you'll have a problem with missing targets. So same way every time, practice.
So you want to bring the gun up to your head and not your head down to the gun, right? That's one of the important things.
One way you can do, I always, when I'm teaching, is say, you go out and back.
Back in, yeah, straight back in.
Just out and back.
So I want to point out the method I put into this PowerPoint is what I use and what I was taught to use for the National Skeet Shooting Association for instructing new shooters. Now, there's a million ways to do everything for the most part, but the end, like Emily was saying, the end result is what matters. That the eye floats over top of the rib like a marble. It's not off to either side. It's not too high above the receiver, and of course not hidden behind the receiver. So the method I show in this PowerPoint is just one way of achieving that end consistent gun mount. The most important thing is that you practice your gun mount. You do it over and over and over again, so that you know that center of impact, your pattern is going to shoot where you're looking. If you have an inconsistent gun mount, like we've said before, you're not going to shoot where you think you are. And in skeet shooting and trap shooting, it's a very, there's a loss of sensory when you miss the target, because you can't see per se. You know, with experience, you'll know where you're missing and all that. But as a new shooter, if you're mounting badly and you're missing targets and you think the gun is shooting where it is, but you have an inconsistent gun mount and you're missing, there's nothing out there to tell you what's going on. So that gun mount is critical. You have a good gun mount, the gun shoots where you're looking, and you're going to be far more consistent.
You'll know when you're in. You'll know when you have it mounted correctly. It's like muscle memory, and you know if you don't have it right and you still shoot, you're likely going to miss the target. And you think, I should have taken the gun down, mounted it again properly. People will wait for you. You have paid for every target. So make sure that you shoot it consistently.
Something I'd like to say about what not to do. There's somebody teaching people to bring the gun way up here and come down. You don't need to do that. All you need to do is, what Dean is saying and Emily's saying, is you bring the gun up and back and your face down. That's all you need to do.
Yep.
And yeah, just like he's doing there, or how I'm doing it here. It's just really simple. But some of these people are way up in the sky and coming back down, and that's just a waste of energy and time, and it looks dumb.
It does.
So, I mean, that leads us into getting the proper gun fit, because if you don't have a properly fitting gun, getting a proper gun mount might be more difficult if it's consistency. So, Dean, whenever you're looking at proper gun fit, why is it important? What are you looking for? And how do you know that the gun fits you properly?
To know a gun fits someone properly, you need to have a consistent stance and mount to start. So you cannot assess someone for gun fit if their mount is inconsistent, because any changes you may want to make to stock, if you make a change and then they mount differently, those changes are now rendered moot. So the very first thing for a good gun fit, or finding that better gun fit, is to have a good stance and a good mount, okay? Other things, essentially at the end of the day, what you're looking for is everything here, but what you want to see is that recoil pad sits in the pocket properly. I see far too many new shooters, when they mount their gun, that gun is sometimes even on their bicep or their shoulder, okay? That is going to cause a lot of discomfort, and that's not where the gun sits. Right in here between your pec and your deltoid, your shoulder, there's a nice squishy part. That's your pocket. That's where the recoil pad should fit and nicely. And you'll notice on my gun and on a lot of competition guns or adjustable guns, I'd mentioned the toe being out here. The reason being is, if you look at my pocket is not straight up and down. If you go around my pec, my pocket is actually quite rounded. So when I shoot a gun that's got a recoil pad that's straight up and down, and I'm shooting doubles, the first shot, my barrels may be straight up and down, but eventually the recoil pad's going to work its way into my pocket, and I'm going to finish that second shot with canted barrels. So for me, having that toe out, and for a lot of shooters for various different reasons, having that toe out sitting in the pocket, what it does essentially, and we know my gun is empty and there's no one there, but when I point, the barrels are straight up and down. Okay, there's no cantedness, and that's largely because of the toe out there. For gun fit as well.
So I was going to say, for trap and skeet, or for trap, is it the same thing for the way it fits into the pocket? Do you want that
You
toe?
want it in the pocket. You don't necessarily have to have the curve. Mine mine is a flat stock, a flat pad, and it fits fine. I tend to, I'm back here. I have mine a little bit above my shoulder, but higher, but it's in the pocket. And I think that's the same.
Absolutely. So other things when you're looking for gun fit, you want to see when you have a good stance and mount, when you mount the gun, that eyeball sits right on the top of the rib. Okay. If the eye is below the receiver and your look is, if an instructor that's trained, and as you can see with my gun here, the weed whacker string in there, that's a barrel clear indicator. So what that means is I have 2 hulls, empty shells with weed whacker string that come out the end, so we know. And I use that for all my students when I have to do gun fittings, so that people at the range, if they see someone with a firearm, and never ever do this, ever, not allowed. I'm trained, I do this a lot, and I have barrel clear indicators, which shows me and shows everyone at the range that that firearm is not loaded. Okay, you want to see the eye. The easiest way to do it yourself is to mount in a mirror, and then you can see that the eye is above the rib. You want to see, like you can see in my image here, my eyes are level. If you have a shooter with their eyes awkward like this, I mean, as human beings, if we were designed to look at the world like this, our eyes would be crooked. But this is how we perceive the world the best, eyes level. And what doesn't help, and you see with some inexperienced shooters and some even experienced shooters, is with inappropriate drop at the heel, like we talked before. Sometimes that causes the gun to be very low, and then they're mounted like this, and they're trying to see out the tops of their eyes. It's not necessarily the most efficient or effective way. And again, if we were designed to look at the world like this, our eyes would be here rather than here. So eyes level, head generally upright, eye over the rib, the shooting eye directly over the rib. The pad fits nicely in the pocket. And then the last thing we're looking at is talking about is length of pull. And like Susan, there's some people put way too much stock into length of pull. Generally, you're too long if the gun looks like this on you, okay? And you're too short if the gun looks like this on you. So for me, yep. So for the way I teach generally is if you have between your thumb knuckle and the tip of your nose, if you have about an inch space, you're looking good for length of pull.
Yeah.
So for gun fit, these are the absolute basics.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the swing and the turn. So the swing is for skeet, the turn is for trap, I think, right? So is it whenever you're doing turns for trap or swings for trap, what?
We don't use the word turn.
No, okay, maybe I got it backwards.
I never use the word turn. It's just
I guess swings for trap, turns for skeet. Got it backwards. So whenever you are teaching somebody to turn for trap, Susan, what are you looking for?
I can do it.
It's a swing in trap.
Sorry,
and
the swing in trap.
And it's a movement. I always say it's from your ankles and you're moving your whole body. Or if somebody's put a pole up the middle of you and you're turning around it. Except we have straightaways as well, so you have to go that way. So it's just a nice, easy, relaxed. I always teach the whole body because that's what we do in international.
Yeah. And a turn, like you're moving as one unit, so your gun is part of your body.
Yeah.
If you are shooting right-handed and you have a right-handed target, there's a tendency to move your gun away from your face, so you have to make sure that you keep your face tight onto the stock.
Yeah. And it's a nice movement.
Smooth, poetry in motion.
So just like for skeet,
when it's the same idea. Like Susan says, the turn is driven with that ankle or knee. I'll say ankle or knee for my shooters, but it's the same difference. At the end of the day, like she said, everything moves in unison together like a turn.
So you're not just swinging your arms or your shoulders. You have your whole body moving, like you mentioned before, like a turret. You're moving the entire body.
if my first move was with my arms, then I'm not shooting where my eye thinks the gun is, because I'm never looking down the gun, I'm focused on the target. So my first move is to push the gun with my arm, and then I turn with my body. The gun is now pointed in a direction that my eye is unaware of. You want to turn as one single unit over top of your lead leg.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we don't, that's not a, I don't believe that's how we do it. I bring the gun up. As soon as I see it, I move with my whole body.
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
So the takeaway point, don't swing with your arm, swing with everything.
No, I'm swinging.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're pushing with your arms, you're doing it incorrectly. If you're turning too much with your hips only, you want to drive with that whole body over top of the ankle.
Okay. So just really, really fast, some terms that you're going to hear on the range: hold points. So whenever you are shooting skeet, you're going to have certain areas where you want to point the gun in certain areas for certain positions. And that's going to change from position to position, right?
So in skeet shooting, the way the NSSA teaches, the way I teach, it's very simple. Your whole point is the same on any station, but your perspective of it is different. And that image down there shows. So you're shooting a high house target. You're always going to start no less than 1/3 of the distance from the house the target emerges from to the center stake. So you can see here, this would be my hold point on high 2. I'm 1/3 of the distance, which translates to 21 feet out from the window. On a high house target, no higher than the bottom of the window. On a low house target, no higher than the top of the window. But the whole point is actually very easy to teach. And the minimum will be 1/3 of the distance from the house to the center stake. If you're any closer than that in skeet shooting, there's a very good chance the target's going to beat your eye, beat your gun, and you're going to have a hard time keeping up with a target and shooting with.
So how does that translate to the trap field? Is it kind of similar rules of thumb or completely different? Yeah,
It's
completely
totally different. So if you have the house, the trap house, when I'm on post 1, and this is sort of the general way everyone has their unique style, but generally what's taught everywhere is, so this is a trap house. If I'm on post 1, I hold on the corner of the house, or the left corner, and some people hold on the house, some people hold straight out. So the different heights. When I'm on post 2, it's halfway between the left corner and the middle, and whatever height. And then when I'm on 3, it's in the middle, whatever height. And when I'm on 4, it's halfway between the middle and the right corner, whatever height. And on post 5, I'm on the right corner, what height. A lot of people now in American trap hold parallel to the ground. They put the gun out and they hold in those different hold points, but the height is parallel to the ground. A lot of beginners hold right on the house on those 5 points.
And the front corners, the front of the house.
Yeah.
So whenever we do our Shotgun 101 clinics, we're going to go into a lot more detail on all of this. But I think the takeaway here is you're going to have hold points and they're going to be different for skeet or trap. So depending on what field we have available, you might be learning more trap. If we have 2 fields available, you might be learning both. And then there are plans hopefully to have more skeet specific and trap specific clinics in the future. I'm going to skip this for now. We want to get to the prize draw. I have about 5 minutes left on this webinar, then it ends. So I'd like to do this. Again, you have to be present. All the people who were here, I have documented. You guys have been here the whole time. You have to have bought a CUSF membership before 8:30. So I made that clear. And you have to have a valid PAL. So we're going to do the draw. The way we're going to do it is I'm going to pull up I have all the names here of the participants of the webinar, and I've got a random number generator here. So first we'll do the Cabela's gift card. You don't have to have a PAL for that, but we'll do that. And if you win the gift card, you can still win the gun. So we'll do that. Do a generate random number 7. Tina, you win a $25 Cabela's gift card.
Nice.
Yes. From our wonderful sponsor, support the Cabela's Outdoor Fund. And we'll do another random number for the 20 gauge Mossberg Maverick 88, kindly donated by the gun dealer. Go check them out. They're out on the East Coast. They support us. So you should support them. Generate a number, lucky number 12, Fedor. I know you've been here.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Come and get it.
I'll be in touch with both of you to get your mailing addresses and to confirm your PAL details for the shotgun. And yes, the other thing, I guess last but not least, here we go. Again, mention our sponsors, the Cabela's Outdoor Fund. Round up whenever you're at Cabela's. It helps them support organizations like us. They've really stepped up, and they're really what made the difference for CUSF to grow. We started with 3 clubs, and now, like I mentioned, it's 20 plus. So we can't do anything without money, and Cabela's is definitely a great supporter of us. Vortex, Stittsville Shooting Ranges, and Beretta. And I'd also like to thank Susan, Emily, and Dean tonight for donating the time. The amount of talent and knowledge that we have on is it's pretty special, and they volunteer their time on the shotgun clinic committee with me, and we're all working towards getting students out shooting as much as we can. So I'd like to personally thank you very much for all of the time and effort that you put in supporting new shooters. And with that, we can sign off. Thanks again, everyone.
Have fun, everyone.
Bye.
Enjoy your shooting.
Bye, Sue.
Bye, Frankie.
Oh.
All right. Bye-bye.
Is it closed?
Yeah, just give me a second here. I'm trying to close it. End presentation.